Retro Hangover is supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes and Ashton Ruby. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated.
Open your ears and crack some beers. You are listening to episode 70 of Retro Hangover.
Hello, retro and classic gamers. Welcome to the podcast where we are all against alliteration at an amazing amount, assailing all assumptions. I am your co-host, Chris Copleen, joined by the first patron saint of RHP, Ashton Ruby, special guest, Derek Buck, the Risen Messiah, and, as always, your host, Shane. Classic Dick Dragon Space Station Koski.
Holy crap. All right, so some quick behind the scenes on that. We're recording on Zencastr for this episode, and Chris just pegged this fucker out. Oh my God. All right.
I've never been pegged quite like that. That was a good pegging.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Nothing zen about it.
Who doesn't like a good pegging? In fact, it looks like
we didn't establish a safe
recording.
word before the beginning of this episode. That's a problem.
The safe word is
pegging,
peg.
actually.
Convenient.
I would just like to say that 2 minutes into the show, we've already discussed pegging, so this is already going really well.
Yeah.
We are on a roll.
Mhm.
So, as it was alluded to in my pegged out introduction, this is a special episode. Of course, we've had Ashton on here before as part of the patron party. He is our wonderful, lovely, and generous patron. Well, at least generous patron. I don't know about the wonderful and lovely, but we'll throw that in there for now, Ashton. Thank you.
I've seen him. He's lovely.
Yes. And Derek Buck, and both of these amazing men were on the show CGR Undertow, which was associated with Classic Gamer. And I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you've at least heard of CGR Undertow or Classic Gamer. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for showing up here today. It's amazing. It's a definite honor to have you guys here.
I have never heard of either of those things, but I'm happy to be here.
Oh, we got the wrong Derek Buck.
Yeah, it's on me.
Shit.
Wrong guy, but hey, let's do it anyway.
Yeah, fuck it.
That sounds like a good idea. Just make some shit up and we'll roll.
We're already here. We fired up the Zencastr.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Ashton, for coming in with the niceties that I always forget to. See, we've picked up right where we left off, where Ashton has to say thanks because I'm talking about pegging.
No, that's fine. This balances everything out really well. You know, Ashton's just like, hey, I really appreciate it. And you're just like, who the fuck are these people?
Actually, you know,
They tied me down.
I'm the Risen Messiah, so thanks for that.
Oh,
Absolutely.
That's true, yeah.
Like we were talking before the show, it's 2020. Anyone could be the Risen Messiah at this point. So why the hell not?
Me. If I can do it.
All right. I don't know if the rapture was on anybody's apocalypse bingo card, but might be the time.
I thought that was the center square.
Is it?
Well, we'll find out. It's going to be a fun year. It's been a fun year.
Yeah, fun. That's a word you could use to
How are you
describe
guys doing
things.
this year? I've had a lot of good times. This has been a great year.
Well, I mean, I really hope it has. You know what? This year, I can't tell when someone says that if they're being facetious or not. It can go any direction.
Yeah. Sad thing is, 2020 has been my best year in about 4 years, which is more of a description of the last 4 years than of 2020. So I'm here for it. I'm ready to go. I'm stoked for the second half. Let's see what she has in store.
So, as we are wont to do, haha, Shane got it again.
I've just given up on doing that.
I know, I can tell. You've quit. We briefly talk about what we've been up to, what games we're playing, if we're playing any games or not, just what we've been doing generally, and life is like succinct as we can. So because we have guests, I'll turn it over to Ashton first, since Derek hasn't been on the show before. So Ashton, give it a roll. Go ahead. Let us know what you've been playing. What have you been up to, man?
Sure. I've been a bit, I don't know if ADD is the right term, but I've been mixing it up this whole quarantine time. I had gotten back into World of Warcraft earlier this year, but already fallen off of that again.
What a nerd.
Yeah. And then my brother, at the end of that, convinced us to resubscribe to Final Fantasy 14.
Whew.
That's a bit more recent. But most recently, I had bought.
That's not a word, but go ahead.
Yeah.
It is now. Listen, if Shakespeare can make shit up, then so can you.
Language evolves.
Pathfinder,
yes.
Kingmaker.
Pathmaker, the king.
Fighter.
That's the one.
Yes. On PC, I think I got it during the summer sale because it was kind of always on a wish list, want list. I'm liking it. It's fun. It has a lot of different modes, so you can basically play like a Pathfinder D&D Diablo version of it, which is just like a roguelike kind of thing. So it's easy to just pick up and play, even if you're not like super into D&D and stuff. So
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, a couple of my friends had picked that up recently too, because our gaming group used to play exclusively Pathfinder until D&D 5th edition came out, and then we dropped that shit hard and went to 5e. But but yeah, no, it was good times. I've heard good things about it though.
yeah, I like it. I'm not hard to please though.
Are you still in FF14 right now?
I'm still subscribed. Yeah,
Technically, okay.
I played when it very, very first came out, when it was not even reborn yet, and then picked it back up when they fixed everything. And then I hadn't played since any of the expansions came out, and now they're on like the third one. So I got some catching up to do.
Yeah, I was waiting for them to release that big patch and do the whole like Realm Reborn like rework and all that stuff. I think that's already happened. I think that was the end of last month, if I'm not mistaken. So I gotta like jump back in and check that out now, because I had like a level 40 something character that I never actually got through the Realm Reborn content with, just because it was such a slog.
All right, Derek, how about yourself?
Here's the thing.
Okay.
I don't like to get out of bed very often, which causes some some issues when it comes to getting out of bed and then starting up a video game. So it's actually been a minute since I sat down with a console, which means I've been playing a lot on my phone. And I, for years, based largely on principle and basic human ignorance, avoided this game. I am now fully immersed in it, and that is Mario Kart Tour for my iPhone.
There are two of us.
There are two of us. I hate it. and yet I can't stop playing it.
That's accurate.
There's so many moments in this game where I just want to tear my hair out, but then I realize how great my hair is, and then I decide, well, maybe I'll just rip some appendages off. But then I realize I need those to play Mario Kart Tour. So it's just been a difficult couple months. But that game, I've never played a Mario Kart game. Rubber banding is a common thing in Mario Kart. Mm-hmm. That's a thing where, if for people, it's a thing where, oh, you're doing well, now you're not. That's rubber banding. It's worse in Mario Kart Tour than I've ever seen in any Mario Kart. I cannot tell you how many times, and I'm not exaggerating, it's got to be dozens, that I have been hit by a red shell within inches of the finish line.
Oh, God.
And then finished like fourth when I was in first the whole race.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievably rubber bandy like that. But I can't stop playing because there's so much content in it. And it's this idea that's sort of new to me, because I'm an old miser, of a game that isn't really a set game. This idea of games as we used to know them as, here are the levels, here are the mechanics, here are the characters, and here's how it all goes. Mario Kart Tour is one of these like modern games where it's like that shit changes all the time. Mm-hmm. The content's always changing. It's evolving because they put new stuff. They pump new stuff into it. They take stuff out of it. It's that kind of thing. So that's really cool and weird to me. And I'm enjoying it because of all that. But God, it is just a nightmare sometimes to play. And the multiplayer is horrendous. It's the first Mario Kart where I can't play it multiplayer.
Yeah, I don't.
It's just a nightmare. Yeah, don't do it. It's terrible. So really the only reason I play it is to unlock cool stuff. And there's so much cool stuff to unlock. And it's what I love about it is it's this idea of like it's incorporating some RPG leveling up type elements to Mario Kart. Turns out that's brilliant because now I can't stop doing it. So I would love to see more of that in like real Mario Kart games, like proper console ones. But in any case, yeah, I've been enjoying that game much in the way a sadist enjoys the things he enjoys.
That's
that's pretty accurate.
Sadistically.
That's a brilliant idea, though. They could make a Mario Kart game like Final Lap Twin or like Mario Golf for the Game Boy.
Yeah, I would love them to just like in Mario Kart Tour, for the sane people out there who haven't played it, you level up the cart. you know, there's all this equipment you can choose from to you basically you pick a driver, you pick a cart, you pick a glider. I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty simple combination of things, but those combinations all have different effects on each other, and you can level up each element. Like you can level up your gliders and you can level up your carts, and it's really addictive to do that in any game. And when you do it in Mario Kart, it's perfect. It's a perfect application of that sort of gaming trope. So I'd love to see more of that in real Mario Karts that aren't as maddening to play.
And so how are you doing on your event coin farming right now?
I just started doing that today. That's kind of a neat little thing. I've been able to buy some more. So yeah, it's a mobile game. So there's a lot of nickel and diming that goes on. I'm a subscriber to it. It's the season pass or whatever. So it's like, I don't know, was it like $4.99 a month or something?
Yeah.
And you get extra stuff every week, which, I mean, listen, I don't like that model. I would much rather pay $49.99 for a video game and own it and have stuff added to it. But that's not the world we live in anymore, at least on the mobile front. So, why fight it? So here we are. What I hate about it is sometimes it feels like these games are telling me, yo, you got to stop playing. Like, give us a minute. Like it's you've run out of your playtime for the day. You got to wait for it to like recharge, which in a way is maybe a good thing because then it keeps me from sitting on my phone playing Mario Kart for 8 hours. So
there you go. Yeah, that was
they're looking out for you.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's totally the reason.
That's what they're doing. It's totally in our interest why they do that. Yep.
Yeah, it's completely altruistic. Yeah. No, like you were talking about it being infuriating, and I'm 100% on board with that because I think it was yesterday or the day before I was literally inches from the finish line in first place, and I got hit by a lightning bolt, a green shell, some sniper behind me, and a blue shell all in a row. I ended up sixth.
Yeah. And what's funny is like that's people are probably going to think we're kidding. That happens in this game where it's almost like they wait until you're to the finish line to do it.
Yeah.
And I've had several times this happen where I'm in first place, everything's smooth sailing, and then all of a sudden I get hit with a million things and I literally roll across the finish line.
Your car is in flames.
You roll across the finish line in fourth place when you spent the entire race in first place. And you don't even get mad anymore. Like now I just laugh and I look at my cats and I say, did you see that? Did you see what happened there? This is ridiculous. I mean, what's happening here? It was in first place the whole time. So I'm doing real well.
Yeah, that's good. And then we continue to pay $5 a month for the gold pass.
Yeah, take my money.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Tour is great. I highly recommend it.
Oh man,
sold.
I avoided that game initially. I tried it out and then dropped it real hard because I was like, man, this looks like garbage. And then we did our episode on Super Mario Kart, and I was like, I should check that out again. And then it was all over.
It's
so
fun.
Here's what I'll say about it. The gameplay mechanics, like all the shit around it is awful, but the core mechanics are really, really good. And it's a Mario Kart game unlike any other Mario Kart in that it's not really about winning the race. It's more about putting together combos.
Yeah.
You can get fifth place and still hit the requisite amount of points because you did enough combos. And people are probably thinking, well, how do you do, what's a combo in Mario Kart? Well, in Mario Kart Wii, they kind of introduced this trick system where you can do like kick your heels on the bike and things. They've taken that to like the nth degree now where you can do tricks and things off of everything in Mario Kart Tour. And you're encouraged, and the tracks are designed this way too, so to basically encourage you to just do as many tricks as possible in a row. And it's almost like winning the race is kind of a secondary goal. So in a sense, maybe it doesn't matter that much that you get screwed out of winning a lot because as long as you had your 90-point combo, then you're going to do great anyway. So it's a really interesting new it's not just the Mario Kart on iPhone. It's a different kind of Mario Kart, and a lot of people are going to hate that. And a lot of people are also going to hate it and also play it every day despite that.
So Shane, have you been playing Mario Kart Tour as well?
Yeah, I have. That's just the thing I do like every day. Actually, it's been every day since we released that Mario Kart episode. So what I'm saying is I actually, this is a cry for help, but yeah, so there's that. I guess while we're talking about mobile gaming, I don't usually bring it up because it's also just a constant thing, but I'm still doing my daily grind in Dissidia, Opera Omnia, Final Fantasy game. It's actually one of the few mobile titles that's fair and generous with like the monetary stuff that they give out. Like they give out a ton of like gems and in-game currency and stuff all the time. So I do put some money into it because I enjoy playing it. But you super don't have to at all, which is unusual. Not only for mobile games, but actually just for Square Enix mobile games specifically. So yeah, still doing that stuff. Outside of that, I have to be honest, Lyle is going to hate this when this episode comes out, and you can hate it right now, Chris.
I do.
I am seriously considering giving up on Final Fantasy V.
Boo!
Dude, this game, okay. Have you ever gotten to a point in a game where you suddenly realize that you are forcing yourself to boot it up to try to finish it? Because that's where I'm at with FF5 right now. I'm just booting it up because I'm like, I made this promise that I was going to do this 4-job Fiesta thing, but I am really not enjoying my time with it. I have to be honest with you.
You should have put that in the chat. I think we all would have understood. And then we could have said, you don't have to do the Fiesta rules anymore. And we would have accepted it.
I think that, honestly, I do think that is part of it. Like, I thought I got a somewhat okay party composition. But having read through the walkthrough that Lyle suggested for it, the strategies for like the boss fights that they put in there, just like, yeah, this was super easy. Just like use your death spell and like use this axe that you found doing this thing. And I'm like, I can't do any of that. None
you
of
mean
my
all the spells I got as a blue mage?
Do those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm rolling with like a white mage, a red mage, a samurai, and a ninja. So like, while I have some cool shit like throw and stuff, I have no access to any of those other things. So like last night, I just hit a complete brick wall inside the guardian tree with the crystal boss.
Yeah.
I am just getting my ass handed to me by those guys because all of the strategies to deal with that fight, I have none of them.
Just make everyone a samurai and don't tell anyone. Just throw gold at them until they're dead.
Yes, the 1% strategy, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, anyway, that's my time with FF5 so far. I might end up just not finishing that. But yeah, that's mostly it right now. Honestly, I'm still plugging away at a character in Vindictus, but other than that, that's about it. I don't know. What about you, Chris? What have you been up to besides almost getting hit by trucks?
Well, yeah. First of all, right before recording, I almost got hit by a truck who told me that because the crosswalk went from the little walkie person to the flashing hand signal, I was in the middle of the intersection, meant that I should not have been in the intersection as he tried to run me over. So he got angry that I called him a motherfucker, and then he told me that I need to be careful who I called a motherfucker. And then I just shrugged at him and he drove away. And I was very upset. I still am kind of upset. And it was I would say an eventful end to a rather uneventful day, but I'm also extremely like stressed out and super anxious right now, because hopefully by the time you hear this episode, I will have finished my final college course. I'm working on my final, and it is due on less than a week from now. In fact, it's we are recording this on a Thursday. It's due on a Tuesday, and it's the final paper for my final college course. And I just got to get a B in the class, and I'll graduate cum laude. And I just want that. I don't know why it matters. It doesn't, as long as I get the degree.
C's
but I'm
degrees,
kind of,
man.
I get it, but there's a pride element. Okay, I'm on a massive A streak, and I'm just about done, and that'll be a nice little feather in the cap. And that's my goal. Set my goal and get it.
Nice.
But in terms of video games, I'm still playing Romancing Saga: Minstrel Song for the PlayStation 2, and it is a good game that does everything it can to be unenjoyable. It tries very hard to be a bad game.
Yeah, you noticed that too?
What's that?
The theme
What's
going
the
on.
theme?
Sort of love-hate relationships.
Yeah.
Love-hate. Oh, got it. Yes. I didn't pick up on that. See, that's why I shouldn't do these things.
Why do you do that? What is the compulsion to make us hate? Like, we want to love you.
Yeah.
Just let me love you.
So there's as alluded to last week, the entire point of the game is it has a brilliant battle system. It has a brilliant design. So it's I know a lot of people probably haven't played a Saga game. If they have, it's probably been Saga Frontier, Saga Frontier 2 for the PlayStation. But this is a remake of the Romancing Saga series, which we didn't get in the United States for the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom more appropriately. And one of the hooks for the Saga, or specifically the Romancing Saga games, is that it has a character development much like Final Fantasy 2, except you don't have to kill yourself in order to gain HP. So it's a little bit better. And throughout battle, like your characters, depending on weapon setup you have, they'll randomly learn abilities, and you'll be fighting, and then randomly your character will learn a new attack or a new spell, and you can make them powerful, and they learn combinations, and it's such a joy. But the game punishes you for fighting battles by having this thing in the background called an event rank. And the more battles you fight, the higher event rank goes. And if your event rank goes too high, in some situations, you can't do side quests. So you have to actively avoid fighting battles, which is the best thing about the game. In addition to it, the game has something called proficiencies. And these proficiencies allow you to do things in dungeons, like jump across chasms or climb up ladders or find hidden passageways or disarm traps or stuff like that. The problem is, once you are in the dungeons, you can't set your proficiencies, and you're only limited to a certain amount of proficiencies. So if you can spend all this time getting into a dungeon, not knowing what you're supposed to do, and then find out you didn't come out with the proper preload. So
it's called subverting expectations, Chris.
It does everything it can in its power to make you not like it. Plus, it's open world as fuck. Doesn't tell you what it wants you to do. It has no linear narrative whatsoever. It has no overarching plot. It's just go fight things. And you're like, sure. And I don't know. I love it on that aspect, but I also hate it. I've also started up playing Pokemon Go, and I'm having a lot of fun with that. I sent Shane my friend code. He has yet to add me. So who on you, Shane?
That's also because I haven't loaded up Pogo in like a week. So
that's what he says.
There's that. Hey, man, the community day is coming up soon. So, I'm there for that.
Yeah, I'm still grounded because I'm in the military and I can't leave my house because people won't wear masks.
God bless America.
God bless them.
Number one.
Number one. I don't know why I said that like an Asian man.
I was just, you know what? I was just going to go with it.
America, number one.
So I don't know, Chris, what do you think? You think we should probably roll into what we're here to talk about?
Well, this has been Retro Hangover.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hey, hell of a show, guys. We really knocked it out.
Yes.
All the games we hate and still play.
Mario Kart.
Hey guys, welcome to the show about video games. God, I fucking hate video games. See you later.
Video games are terrible.
I just feel like that's really relatable, honestly.
But I think it is extremely relatable because we are with two people who have probably played a ton of bad games in the name of producing content that we have all consumed and enjoyed. So as I said earlier, Ashton and Derek were members of Classic Game Room Undertow, CGR Undertow, or effectively known as a part of Classic Game Room, even though they were two separate channels on YouTube. And they were very, very big up until they closed up shop, more so Undertow, in 2015. But they were, of course, prolific members. Now, most of you probably, if you watched CGR Undertow, you'll probably know Derek more than Ashton. Ashton was a member. He was there, and he'll tell us when he was there. But this is why we're kind of going past the brief history, because I don't think anyone could really tell the brief history, at least their own personal brief history, with something better than the people who are actually there. So we'll start out with that. So first of all, I believe which one of you was there first? Was it Derek or Ashton? I think it was Derek from what I have heard.
Oh, Derek by a long shot.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't mind, how could you tell us kind of how you got started, how you got involved with CGR and on what CGR is?
Yeah. So for people who don't know, because it's been a minute now, which makes me feel old, Classic Game Room was a giant YouTube channel back in the days when people watched actual content on YouTube. I don't know. Do people still do that? Is that still a thing? Do people actually watch coherent thoughts and stuff on YouTube? Maybe not. I don't know.
It's how you define it, I guess.
Yes.
This is the wrong place to ask.
Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. So Classic Game Room was a big deal. And I had just gotten out of college. I graduated with a journalism degree, and I wanted to get into video games journalism. I was writing for a really popular Nintendo blog at the time called Infendo. This was right around the time the Wii was coming out. And I got an email from somebody asking me if I'd be interested in a job. And it was a company called Classic Game Room. And I always felt bad because I had no idea who they were because I wasn't a YouTube guy. I was more of a IGN, GameSpot kind of guy, like the written articles and stuff, because I was a journalism guy. Mm-hmm. So I was actually pretty much a straight news, very serious type journalism writer at the time, if you can believe that. Classic Game Room changed that. But I sort of got in. I went. I talked to them, and they brought me in initially because they wanted to. They were a YouTube channel, but they really wanted to build up a website as well, and they wanted some writers. So they liked my stuff, and they asked if I would write for them. So I wrote for them starting in very early 2010. I would say like March, maybe. And within a couple months, they loved my writing, and they said, "Hey, we want to do a spin-off channel, like a second channel here at the company, and we want you to host it. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Are you kidding? I've never even watched YouTube." And so I got trial by fire. I was thrown into it, and it took me a couple years to figure it out, but that's how it started.
Okay. How about you, Ashton? How'd you get involved?
Well, somewhat similar. I had no idea or never heard of Classic Game Room. I was a little familiar with YouTube, but basically I was looking for a job, and I found one on the internet.
Tell us more about this internet.
Yeah, more specifically.
I hear it's a series of tubes.
Yeah.
Oh.
A web of sorts.
Not a dump truck.
I found an ad. I would look on Craigslist for jobs because I had nothing to live for at that point, I guess.
Hey, welcome to the club, Ashton. Woo!
Yeah, I tell people this story, and after I hear myself say it, they're like, "Wait a second."
Oh no!
They're like, "You went to an interview that you got from Craigslist?"
Hey,
and you left with your head still connected?
To be fair, I did ask to decapitate Ashton and was flatly told no.
Yeah.
So.
Oh. At least you tried, Derek.
Yeah.
I did. I saw him, and I don't know what it was. There was just something about his face. I just thought I would like to cut that off.
Oh no!
What it was, like, I couldn't tell you really why. It just I had this compulsion. I was like, I kind of would like to cut that off and wear it. Have you ever seen Silence of the Lambs?
It's been a minute.
That was kind of what was going through my head at the time. So I knew right away it would be a great working relationship.
Exactly. So yeah, I went, and they gave me the address, and I was like, okay. I Googled it. I was like, oh, it says Guardian Storage. I was like, maybe they like also just have office space.
Please tell me it was like a dockside warehouse.
Almost. It was on the river.
So excellent.
It was literally almost that.
Yeah. So I go in, and they're like, come into the office, and they'll let them know you're here. I'm like, all right. So I go in, and sure enough, there was like a room with a table that we talked at for a little bit, and they're like, all right, let's check out the space or whatever. And they walk out of that room and open up one of these like garage doors into one of the storage units, and there's like 2 desks and computers and somebody like typing on one. I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh, it's here.
Okay, so I got to ask, because you guys, like, I think if you've watched the show, it's pretty common knowledge that it started out in a storage shed. That was very...
What?
It didn't look like it. Like, I didn't know that until you guys moved into like that studio.
No, yeah.
They'd bring us in with one of those burlap sacks over our head.
Yeah.
Never knew where it was.
So
It was actually pretty brilliant. So the story behind it was they owned this building, but it needed a lot of work. And that building was what you eventually saw as the Classic Game Room studio that we had in the later years. But it needed a lot of work. And so as they were putting that work into it, they were like, hey, we need office space. And it turns out when you go to a storage facility, like an apartment storage facility, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't really care what you use the space for. They have space, and they will, as long as you pay for it, it's your space. So in the meantime, while that office space was getting set up, we rolled all of our shit into these storage units and had like little like studio suites. And it was in a way kind of brilliant because it was super cheap for them. It allowed us to kind of like save money while we were spending money, if that makes sense. And then also it was really funny because we'd be in there. I mean, especially my stuff, I would just be in there yelling and screaming. And you would have these people walk by that are like moving their daughter to college. And it's just like, they peek in and see me yelling and screaming. And they're like, what the fuck? What is happening?
It's AV Club, Mom.
It was so cool. It really had like a Stranger Things AV Club vibe to it. Like when those guys are in there fucking around with radios and shit. That's kind of what we did, except we did it for literally like there millions of people watched it. And it was such a surreal, weird thing, but God, it was great.
So did you guys have like internet inside the storage facility, or did you like outsource that to another location to do all your editing?
Yeah, we had on-site internet and editing stations and the whole recording studio and cameras, mics, everything. Yeah.
They hooked up each unit with internet for us. That's what I mean. Like they were super accommodating. They were like, "Oh, you're going to use this for office space? Well, here we'll string up some better lights for you. We'll get internet in here." I think it's one of those things where it's like the secret menu at McDonald's. Like you can go to a storage facility and ask for the office space, and it's like the secret menu. Like they'll do it for you, but obviously they're not going to advertise it. But it's like, yeah, they could not have been more accommodating. And some of my favorite things about those years there were talking to the people who ran the storage facility because they were such great guys. And it was a weird thing. And when people like Ashton came in, there was that initial hurdle of what the fuck is this? Like this seems like a real clown show. And to be fair, it was a clown show because Mark and I were clowns. But we did some really great work with Classic Game Room. Was never ever ever about, and the reason it worked so well for me is it was never about the tools, it was about the content. It didn't matter what tools you were using. It didn't like people so many times people come up to me, they're like, "Oh, I want to get into YouTube, I want to start vlogging, what kind of equipment?" I said, "Oh, you already shouldn't do it if that's what you're asking." Because it's not about that. It's about if you have a phone, fuck it, that should work. What you should be worried about is your content, your ideas for that. Make that stuff good. And then the rest of the stuff doesn't matter as much. And that's what Classic Game Room was really all about.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's kind of the same sort of sentiment for just games in general, right? Like it
should be, right?
Yeah, it's less about the AAA graphics and more about the actual mechanics and gameplay, or at least it should be. So now
it should. Yep.
Also, what I'm hearing is that a storage unit probably has a better internet connection than my house, which is fantastic.
Well, definitely my house.
Yeah.
I don't have it, so I don't know.
I don't even know how he's here right now.
Yeah. Well, it goes in with the whole risen savior thing. I'm just kind of omnipotent.
It's just a pre-recording that we're putting our answers and questions in between.
This whole episode was predestined. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
So I actually applied for like an editor position. That's what they were looking for, like an AV editor, and that was my background. And they failed to mention because the one guy was leaving like the next week. But that was initially what I started to do, and I did the whole time. Basically, was edit other people's reviews. So the other reviews, like Derek, and there's only like one or two other people that edited their own videos while I was there. But they would record the gameplay for like an hour or two, and then record their audio, and then me and another guy, Brandon, would cut them up and make them the final shows or whatever. And there wasn't a lot of like, at least in my experience, a ton of communication kind of back and forth. It was just kind of like, well, here's the footage. Here's their audio. You might get the script, I think, sometimes.
At least from me. I don't know about everybody else,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Which is not like, this isn't like a drag or criticism yet. But
We'll
but
get
that was
there.
kind of what it was that was just like, well, make it whatever the current, YouTube target was. Like, it started at like 5 minutes, and then it became 3 minutes, and then it was like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was interesting because it was a lot of kind of self-directed. There was just a list of like, Derek recorded this game at this time, and Amanda did this game, and there'd just be like a list, and then like me and Brian would be like, all right, I'll do this and this and this or whatever.
So I'm curious, was there any sort of direction given to you as far as like how the content should be sort of edited together in like some sort of, uniform fashion? Like, is the style of the CGR videos, was that something that was communicated to you, or is that something that just kind of naturally like evolved over time?
I'd probably say it's my memory's fuzzy. It was 10 years ago at this point. Sure. But probably more toward the latter. There were a few things like that were just preset, like they did the little squirrel logo thing at the beginning, and then the intro with the music, and the title or whatever, and then the slate at the end that said like, this is a journalistic review of Ben 10 or whatever.
Most of our guideposts were branding. There were certain things for branding, obviously, that had to be consistent. So title screens and lower thirds and things had to be the same files in all the videos, and they had to look the same. But what was really cool about Undertow in particular compared to the main show was that the main show was just Mark. He was the only guy on it, so all the videos had his tone. Whereas on Undertow, for a while, it was just me. But then there was a period of a couple years there where we did have, like you mentioned, people like Amanda that came in. We had like when Undertow was rolling and Classic Game Room was at its peak, we had a full-time staff of probably 20 people.
Wow.
So we had a lot of different personalities there working. And within that sort of framework of branding on Undertow, you had different people giving different perspectives and different personalities. And that's one of the things I liked about it that period, was that everyone kind of did their own thing. And at least on my end, I was always at Classic Game Room encouraged to make it my own, because Mark and I could not be more different. He sees the positive in everything. I've never seen anything positive in my life. He's got this really great Shatner voice that sounds like butter melting over chocolate syrup. I come in sounding like Mickey Mouse has diarrhea. Like, we could not. He likes Sega. I like Nintendo. Polar opposites in so many ways, and yet he would always say, "No, do you like do that? That's who you are." So yeah, in terms of the tone, I was really allowed to go my own direction, and especially in the later years, I went way out and really pushed it. But that was one of the great things, is he never tried to make it like his show ever.
And that's something I could definitely tell with you, Derek, especially from like the last episode ever, where it's a very good, I would call it like one of the most artistic pieces in the entire catalog of CGR. I think it was very well done.
Thank you.
It was a very nice episode. But in terms of how like when you guys did game reviews, because I noticed there was somewhat of a common theme, or at least a common, like if you play games, you would play these typical kind of games between who did reviews. Was that intentional? So for example, Ashton, I saw he did like Final Fantasy V and Xanadu, and more role-playing, more complex like NES platformers or whatever, like atypical NES games. Whereas you always kind of got the shitty games or Nintendo games.
Right.
Was that by design, or was it more just random and just by coincidence?
It was totally by design. So one of the things we did, we were very, I mean, I've always been this way, and sometimes gamers get a little mad at me, but I'm very much a realist in that, like, I don't like everything. And there's stuff that I don't give a shit about. And everyone's going to be like that if they're honest with themselves. You know, everyone wants to pretend that they love everything, and maybe some people do, but like I don't give a shit about JRPGs. I just don't. So we had different people on the staff who
I
had
hear
different
Chris
interests.
dying inside right now.
Chris, I'm sorry about
No, I get it. No, I get it. I completely get it.
That's fine.
So yeah,
I hate Smash Brothers, so there's that.
see, and I love it. So like we had different people. We always thought like I want the person who knows the most about this shit to talk about it. So if it was a JRPG, we went to someone like Ashton, or for a while we had someone named TJ who was really good at that. Like a total otaku.
We call him weebs now.
Oh, is that the new word?
I think so. Yeah, that's what Shane always calls me.
He's a total weeb. But yeah, and that was what was cool. Is like if it's a big AAA Nintendo game, I'm gonna review it. If it's a shitty Barbie game, I'm also gonna review it. That was my range. And then if it were, JRPG, someone else would do it. If it was a Sega game, someone like we had different departments basically, and it sort of started off intentionally, and then it just kind of became second nature. A game would come in, and we'd be like, oh well, that's obviously a TJ game, or that's obviously a Derek game. And people would send in games and request certain people. Here's a game for Derek to review. Here's a game I really want TJ's thoughts on. So
I'm gonna not push back, maybe peel the kimono. Is that the right term? But my experience was a little different, and I think from my observations, Derek's job and experience was a lot different than I would say, at least when I worked there. Like the other reviewers. Like Derek was working full time, and he kind of, like you had these games, like you had like so many you were doing per day, right? Like you kind of had a minimum. Yeah.
We had different people at CGR Undertow, but I was always the main host, and it was not to be a dick, but it was me. And like, if anyone out there's a metal fan that knows the band Megadeth, I was the Dave Mustaine of CGR Undertow, and we filled in some musicians here and there, but like I was always there, and it was kind of my
right. Yeah. Which was great.
Was he a Dave Mustaine size dick, Ashton?
Only
you
once.
Can be honest. Ashton, you can totally be honest, because I'm sure I was at times.
No, Derek was always awesome. I mean, that's not just me being nice because he's here. Derek was always great to work with, but Derek was kind of always doing his thing. Like that was like he came in and he would write reviews, or he had them written already, and he had a lot to do. Like that was like his job, like his responsibility was to do these reviews. And he certainly, I don't think anyone could argue, like he worked the hardest at it. And it definitely showed. Like he did have a flavor to it. He had some of his running jokes that, pretty much landed every time. And from what I remember, I always enjoyed editing Derek's videos, because they were always like, there was usually something clever about them. At least, a couple of really good jokes that landed well, where everybody else didn't have quite as comfortable or strong a voice. Probably next in line would be TJ. He probably had the second longest career. I didn't work with some of the other earlier guys who did some good stuff. But anyway, when I was there, it felt a little more like pick a game, do the review, edit it in under an hour, like, work on it for an hour, and then put it up, and like do the next one and do the next one. And I kind of felt like I didn't really receive a ton of direction. It was more like, let's get it done. Make sure, these crucial things are covered, like whether they be legal or copyright or whatever. So it was more like it felt, and this could have been my problem. Like I wasn't trying to communicate better, but I felt like there was a bit of a disconnect. Like we weren't given a ton of directions. Like, hey, we want to make sure you have these. There was really no editing process. It was just kind of like, if someone was willing and able to come in and record on the system and write a review that ended up being, 3 to 5 minutes or whatever, it's like, okay, you're a reviewer now. They didn't have to be incredibly clever or observational. And it was just like some of these people like had never really done it before. So it's not really like they sucked at it necessarily. Well, I mean, they did because they didn't have any experience,
Right.
And that's kind of fine. There wasn't really much gatekeeping or whatever. And to some degree, that's great. Like,
and it's interesting you say that, because I think you really saw that when they launched the website, when you guys first left YouTube. I don't know if you were there for that, Were you Ashton when they left YouTube for the first time?
They had started uploading on some other sites like Daily Motion and stuff.
Right.
That was right about the end of my illustrious career there.
Okay. But
and actually, I stopped reviewing at some point. They just had me, and I don't even think I was really editing anyone's videos anymore.
Mhm.
It was mostly just Brandon, and I think TJ did his own. Derek might have started doing his own. I was on this other project where I was like uploading old videos to a different website to get more views and get more ad revenue. And yeah, it just kind of felt more like we're just doing it just so we can keep the lights on. And like to some degree, I sympathize. Like YouTube, every day it's like different what the rules are. And one day they monetize, next they don't. And next time you say something weird and you lose all your money. Like that's shitty. But it and I felt a little bit of like, there was a bit of a disconnect, or like you had people running the company that were like super good at running a business, like a legit business. But this was totally different. This was online and new and changing. And while they had the advantage to like know how to run something super well, like use the storage unit that they were already renting as an office, brilliant. They were always felt like they were trying to keep up and change and adapt, which is cool, but it kind of made it hard to like get any traction when all the other reviewers were more like kind of a part-time, like if you did a review, you got paid whatever the standard rate was that they had or whatever. And so, yeah, you were getting paid to play and review video games, but I don't know. It wasn't, I didn't feel like it wasn't like, hey, let's try new things and there wasn't like time enough or space enough to like really collaborate. Like that's always what I wanted, was there to be kind of an editing process. Like Derek has his script and he runs it by a couple of people. We like a writing room kind of experience, Right. And maybe that wouldn't have worked, but I always felt like we could have taken it to the next level and really done some cool things had we like tried to explore outside the box or take risks or something. And I always felt they were a little risk adverse. And again, maybe it's just my experience. Maybe I wasn't. Now I've had 10 years to kind of sit on it. I can articulate it a little better. But in the moment, it's just kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll edit this video. Sure. Yeah, it's done. Okay, next one.
Well, honestly, I mean, not that I'm an insider on any of this, because our exposure to YouTube is just uploading our shitty Twitch streams and like the video versions of like the podcast audio. But from what I've gathered from, more illustrious YouTubers over the past few years, is that sort of frantic pace of trying to keep up with the constant platform changes and being, agile in that way while also pumping out regular content is apparently not unusual, and it's somewhat like endemic to the platform, which I think what you were saying, is kind of detrimental to that whole creative process, right?
And I'd like to give a lot of my last point, and I'll shut up. I wanted to give a lot of credit, like say some positive things, like to Mark, because the things he was doing, like nobody was doing at that time, like he was a bit of a pioneer in that. And, I was grateful to be able to, pay rent with that and another part-time job, like doing this thing that was kind of cool and, reviewing games and working with an internet company. It was cool. It was cool. It wasn't without its hardships and trials and whatever, but
I think, Ashton was there at a time when this was especially true, but there was something that was true about that place. Now, for me, if you talk to a lot of people who had interactions with them and with us there, they will have horror stories, to be quite frank. I have never shared that. I'll just say, because I don't want to negate what you'll ever hear anybody else say, I had a very different experience at Classic Game Room than a lot of people, and I think it was based purely on the fact of my position there. I was the mark of our show, so I got a lot of preferential treatment, and I was making a salary, so I didn't have any qualms about anything business wise. You won't hear me criticize Classic Game Room very much at all. But one thing I will say is that sometimes I think people had a misconception. They would see me and Mark goofing around on camera, and they thought, oh, these are just some dudes goofing around on camera. When in reality, it was a company. And it was run by business people who were brilliant business people, but who did not know anything about video games whatsoever. And so it was
like Bobby
difficult.
Kotick.
I don't know what that is.
You're better off. And also I appreciate that you referred to him as that, but continue.
Yeah, so he sounds like a real dad. But it would get a little frustrating, and I'm not criticizing them because I didn't know anything about what they were doing. It was just different pages. And they, I mean, I don't like to pull back the curtain too much, but it was run by people who were very, very successful in other areas. And so I had people I had to report to, and it was never in a creative sense. Ashton's right in that regard. It was always more about, here's your quota. They were numbers people. And so we never got to really have discussions about the creative side. And again, I'm not trying to criticize them for that. That's their world. I'm the artsy fartsy English kid who's never made any money, who just cares about the integrity of the content, right? So obviously we butted heads sometimes. But particularly in the later years after Ashton was gone, it changed. But during that time when things were really at their peak in terms of money and success, it was very much an assembly line. I would come in and do my part, and the gears kept moving, man. Like, I had to do 10 reviews a week. That was not my choice to do that.
Right.
People would get really mad and say, you're barely playing this game. It's like, dude, I'm doing what I can. I have to review 10 of these a week. And I think people hear 10 and they think that's a small number. Okay, well, you got to play the game. You got to research the game. You got to record the game. You got to think about the game. You got to write a script for the game. You got to deliver that script. And you got to think about that script. Did that really land? Then you got to edit the script. You got to do that 10 times in a week.
Yeah,
so things got
that's a
tight.
crazy pace.
Yeah.
It was an insane pace. And it was especially hard on, this is where the splitting of the work worked really well because I didn't have to sit with it that long. I would do my part and then kick it off to Ashton and start something else, or kick it off to Brandon and start something else. So we were all laser focused on what we had to do at the time, what was right in front of us. And because of that, particularly again in those earlier years, there wasn't as much of the creative back and forth. Later on, when the company was starting to struggle financially, things loosened up. When it was basically just me and Mark there, I mean, not only were those my favorite years at Classic Game Room, those were some of my favorite years of my life. And I think maybe that's why I look back at that time with a much rosier perspective than Ashton and Brandon and some others might. I am forever grateful for those years and would take them back in a heartbeat if I could. They were the best years of my life. I learned every day I went to work there. I learned so much just from working with people like Brandon and Ashton and Mark. I went into that with no video experience at all. Zero. I'd never edited a video. And now I'm a full-time videographer for a living. Like, my whole life was altered and changed by Classic Game Room in the best way possible. And I just, because I hear because a lot of times people, when we still talk, I'd still talk with people from then, and they'll be like, hey, remember that nightmare day? And I'm like, yeah, but I would still take that. I just had a different experience, and I miss it a lot.
That's great. And I think that's awesome. And I definitely learned a lot too. Like, to be honest, like, I used an editing program I'd never touched before that I didn't mention during my interview. But I learned how to use it. And now, like, that's the one I use exclusively now. Yeah. And yeah, there were definitely a lot of really great things that came out. And I was like watching my old reviews in kind of preparation for this. And it was kind of that like, like looking at old photos yourself or reading an old diary or something like, oh, how bad is this going to be? But I was actually surprised. I was like, hey, some of these they're okay. I'm like, wait, I read that? That's kind of funny.
The wild thing about Undertow is that, and this is one of the things I'm most grateful for Mark for, is they did not take the show down. It is still up there. Mm-hmm. There's still a mountain of content, and people are still discovering it. I get messages literally every day from people about Undertow, and the channel's still growing. Every day it has more subscribers than it did the day before. Like, there are people who are discovering it now who don't even know that it's not a thing anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
sure, yeah.
It's been able to continue on its own and exist. And when I do go back and look at stuff, or when people send me stuff, I am fucking proud of some of that stuff. Some of the stuff, again, particularly in the later years, because it took me a while to figure out how to do the job. But Mark encouraging me, and one of the most important lessons I ever learned from Mark, he would get frustrated with me, and rightfully so, because I was a pain in the ass. But I came from a journalism world where this shit's serious, right? This game about a plumber jumping on an evil mushroom, this is serious shit. And we need to take it seriously and provide a real deep psychological look at this game. And Mark would always just be like, dude, pump the brakes. You doing a 10-minute video about the psychology of Zelda is great. It's great. But you know what's going to get a lot more traction? If it's just you chilling, having fun. And I resisted that forever until I finally realized, and I've seen it reflected back in other areas of life. He's totally right. Everything is entertainment. Nobody watches the news if it's not entertaining. Like if you're not, especially in this world now where there's a million different options of things you can look at and play, and you have a split second to get somebody's attention. You probably shouldn't spend 10 minutes making an argument. Like, let's get to it. Let's have a good time and let's engage. I was always so much more focused in those early years on making a really clever argument where it's like, dude, just engage. And that was a lesson I learned from him that I've applied to even what I do today.
So I want to touch on something really briefly, because I think, if you've noticed, or maybe you haven't, a lot of people really shit on Mark nowadays. And I'm not asking really for your opinion on that one way or another, because I just want to kind of go back to something where you said you reported to people. So it sounds like Mark kind of caught in this system, or okay. Because
Mark steered his own ship in a lot of ways. Because Undertow was really successful, enough so that I made a full-time living on it, and I was able to travel the world and live a dream because of it. So we did well. But Mark was in a whole different league. Mark, and because of that success, he was afforded a lot more creative freedom. And if Mark missed a quota, I'm sure it was different than if I missed a quota, right? Like Mark kind of ran his own ship. But what I'll say, I think a lot of people misunderstand Mark. Mark lives for video. Mark is the biggest nerd I've ever met. And I mean that in an endearing way. He loves the stuff he's passionate about. He adores it. But he's also a realist. And he's a dad. He's got kids. He's a grown-up. Like, if something's not making sense for his time, he's going to stop doing it. And I've got qualms with a lot of things that happened at Classic Game Room. I can honestly tell you, I don't remember ever once having anything. I can't remember a single one of them having to do with Mark.
I just think it's because Mark is the face of Classic Game Room, or 80s comics as it's called now. Maybe it will be different next week. And that's just how it is. I'm not trying to say anything about anything. It's just the reality of the situation. But when you say that there is, people running the business, and of course I'm not asking you to get into the weeds about that. I think that a lot of people don't understand that, and they associate everything that has gone on with Classic Game Room with Mark.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. When Undertow shut down, I can't tell you the amount of messages I saw people send Mark, like, why did you close Undertow? Like, as if he wanted to do that, as if that was his decision. As like, people just, it's a thing now with the, people just assume things. And I would say 90% of what people assume about Classic Game Room and Undertow and everything that happened is probably wrong.
Yeah. So I am curious about something that you mentioned a few minutes back. You were saying that that the pace and the sort of like assembly line sort of nature of what you guys were kind of cranking out seemed to change in the later years, almost like it coincided with the company having perhaps some, financial struggles or something, which I find interesting because you think it'd be the other way around. But do you think of like why that occurred in that fashion?
So yeah, it was a thing you could see happening. So when Ashton was around, we were at our peak in terms of hiring. Like I said, we had a team of probably about 20 people, and like a company, we had Christmas parties, and it was a real work office environment as much as a video game review company could be,
Sure.
As YouTube, and if there's anyone I'm going to shit on here, it's YouTube.
That's fair.
It's the most YouTube thing we've said the whole podcast.
Like YouTube changed so much, and it became a platform not for the smaller creator like us. It became a platform for PewDiePie. It became a platform for the really big people, and it squeezed out everyone else. They really started to, and I could see this in Mark every single day. Mark fucking, like, I'm not trying to suck his dick, but he created the idea of the video game review show. Yeah. Fucking nobody was doing that before Mark, and I don't care what anybody says. And it's not just because I worked across the hall from him for 6 years that he did that.
Well, in 1999.
Yeah, I mean, people were dialing up their fucking modems to watch Mark. Like, so I don't want to hear anybody say Mark. Mark's the guy that started this, and for YouTube to treat him the way they treated us, I mean, they would just every day it was a different thing where they were changing the monetary policies, and we were making less and less and less money. At the same time, our views were going up and up and up and up and up. Mm-hmm. So it was this frustrating thing for everyone, I'm sure, at the company where they recognized the good work everyone was doing. And yet, due to factors out of our control, things were getting harder and harder, and they had to let people go. It got to the point where from that team of, again, almost 20 people probably, it got to the point where it was just me and Brandon working on Undertow. Mm-hmm. And then even Brandon had to go. And then for a while, for the last probably 8 months of the company, it was just me. And in that time, I think out of necessity, we just had to say, like, we're not going to be able to do the same amount of stuff. You're going to do what you can get done, And it was in those years that I think I made my best content. And it wasn't just because I had more time, but it was because I had Brandon. I had years of working with Brandon, who is a goddamn saint, who taught me so much about using a camera. And I'm not talking about the technical end of, all that stuff. I'm talking about, hey, here's a really clever way to hold it for this shot. Mm-hmm. Hey, why don't you focus on this for this angle? Hey, here's how you compose this frame. I learned that stuff from Brandon and from Mark, and being able to apply all that at the end was like a bittersweet. It sucks because I was better at that job at the end than I'd ever been, and having to let go of it sucked.
Yeah, I can imagine. So in the following years, like after this sort of thing, and actually, Derek, you touched on this a little bit, but I'm curious, both from you and actually from Ashton also, outside of like the messages and things like that evidently you still get about Undertow and things like that. I mean, have you experienced any sort of, and I'm doing air quotes on this audio only format, but I'm telling you, like any sort of celebrity like from this, like, is this like a day-to-day thing or?
I don't have much of an ego because I don't think very highly of myself. People who know me personally will tell you that I should probably have more of an ego. I think I'm the biggest piece of shit that ever lived. However, when Undertow was really cranking, it was so cool. And again, the thing I'm so grateful for and miss so much is, my God, it was every week I would get noticed somewhere. I went to an Office Depot once to get something trivial for the office, and this guy that worked there kept coming up to me. You doing okay? You doing okay? You need something? I'm like, no, I'm good, bro. I'm good. Finally, he's like, a girl that he worked with came over with him and was like, he's afraid to ask, are you the guy from Classic Game Room? And would you with him? I'm like, yeah, dude, you didn't have to bring the girl over. Like, yeah. But that kind of shit happened so much. I was walking down the street. I live in Pittsburgh, and I'm walking down the street in downtown Pittsburgh, and this little kid runs up to me, tugs at my shirt. I take off my headphones. I'm listening to death metal, so I can't hear him. So I take off the headphones, and he's like, I just wanted to say I love your videos, and I watch all the time, and he hugged me.
Oh.
I cried for a week. Like,
that's awesome.
And I think I forgot sometimes that how big the show was. I mean, we had 160,000 subscribers, and that was a fraction of the audience. Most of our audience came from people stumbling across it, Mm-hmm. I mean, we had videos that hit millions and millions of views. So, I mean, one of the things, life since then has been really hard for me. And one of the things that sucked the most is I couldn't find a job after Undertow, and I had to go work at a record store. And so I was seriously depressed. Every day I wanted to just die because I felt like a failure. And what was really hard about it was this record store also sold video games. So every day someone would come in shopping for video games and see me there and flip shit and ask for a picture. And then they'd be like, so what are you doing? What are you doing here? And I'd be like, I'm working here now. And I just felt like,
wow.
What? what? Why? You're Derek from Classic Game Room. What are you doing here? And it's like, yeah, I miss that. But yeah, the celebrity stuff. The last video I did, I'm really glad you brought it up because that was hard for me to do, and I wanted it to be honest. Losing that job was brutally hard for me emotionally, and because for years it was the only thing I cared about. And to go from, there's a line in that video that's the truest thing I've ever written. It was really hard for me to go from Derek from Classic Game Room to just Derek again. And I don't know that I have it all yet, really. But the letters I got during that period as we were closing up and as I was working on that last video, I mean, people sent toys and letters from around the world. People sent Ninja Turtle toys from fucking France. Just thanking us for what we did. And
that's awesome, though.
It was, and I think that's part of the reason I don't think about the hard stuff as much, is because of the unbelievable blessing it was to work there and to have that. I'm sorry.
No, man.
You're good, man.
Let it go. Let it loose.
I lost a lot in the last few years of my life, and the amazing thing is that I haven't lost the people that watch that fucking stupid YouTube show. Here's an interesting little thing that illustrates the support. It's been 5 years now since the last episode, right? Like, it's been a while.
Yeah.
And my car broke down, and I was in a really bad spot, like earlier this year, probably in March, and I couldn't afford a new car. Undertow viewers raised $1,000 for me to make a down payment on a new car 5 years after the show. I can't thank. I'm sorry.
No,
it's
you're
okay,
good, man.
I'm the one that should be sorry.
I
We need to start over.
No. I can't thank Mark enough for giving me that opportunity. And to hear that, I don't think I did. I hear it a lot. I had a college student from Australia emailed me and asked to interview me for her thesis.
Wow.
Because she got into journalism because of CGR Undertow. I miss it every day. And I can never thank those people enough. The people who watched, even the people who got on and trolled.
Especially the trolls.
There's trolls.
Every day we got in, it was like, all right, let's read the comments for today. Eric sounds like a butch lesbian. Oh, great. My favorite one of all time was, my mom came in when I was watching this. I changed to porn. It was easier to explain.
That's great.
I just love that. And I miss that community so much. And it was just... And every day was so weird. I would go in and Mark would be like, hey, what are you doing right now? And I'd be like, I just got here 5 hours late, of course. He's like, well, don't worry about it. We're going to go film something. And my bosses would be kind of pissed because Mark would pull me away from whatever I was supposed to be doing. And we would go just like film some stupid fucking thing with toys in the woods. And people all over the place watched it. And that was a dream. Anyway, I'm rambling, but sorry.
No, man. Listen, I'll be the first to tell you that I appreciate you sharing like your perspective on
That's
this.
amazing,
like,
man.
At least for me, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but everything that you have just said has put a completely different sort of spin on a lot of the things that I thought I knew was going on in sort of like the periphery of classic game.
That's what I mean. A lot of people don't know. My God, there was a kid who watched Undertow that had did he have cerebral palsy? I'm pissed at myself that I don't remember. But he had a condition and he was in a wheelchair. His mom would write me and she would send videos of him watching my stuff and how happy it would make him. And I would first tell her, you're a really bad mom for letting him watch my stuff.
But also don't stop.
But, I got to send him a birthday message. I did a quick little minute-long video just for him, and I sent it to him privately, and his mom sent me the video of him watching it.
That's amazing.
And you never expect when you show up at a storage facility from a bunch of people who don't, and they would probably tell you they didn't really know much about video games except for Mark, that are giving you an opportunity. They gave me a platform. Mark, I mean, honestly, Undertow was built by Mark's name. The only reason I got any attention up front was because people loved Mark. So let's see what this other thing is. And eventually I built my own audience, but the only reason I was given that chance is because of Mark. And for him to stake his name like that, for him to give someone with the clear mental problems that I have a platform with his name attached to it, you just never expect it to turn into what it did. And it was the most important time of my life. And in a way, it's also the worst because everything since then has felt utterly meaningless compared to just the great stuff we got to do back then.
Oh, comparatively, yeah, I can't imagine. And I mean, from an artistic standpoint, creating something that is going to be long lasting and kind of creates somewhat of a legacy. I mean, for yourself and everybody else involved, that's it, right? Like that's the thing you're shooting for. And so to have that's incredible.
I mean, I made dick jokes on the internet.
I mean, you say that, man, but I mean, you don't want to downplay it. I mean, just the way that you've described it. I mean, you can talk all you want about it just being this dumbass thing that was on YouTube, but it obviously had an amazing impact on a lot of the people that watched it. And the fact that they're still coming back to it to this day and coming to you, I think is a testament to that content that you put out there. I mean, I can only hope that our stupid podcast has some sort of impact that's even remotely close to that.
I mean, it's just do the thing. You know what I mean? Like, do the thing, make the thing you, and people will respond to that. I remember I used to get so worried about videos and like, well, I don't have any idea for this. What am I going to do? And I would really stress out sometimes because I wanted everything. One of my myriad of problems is that I'm a perfectionist. And if something's even slightly off, I will lose sleep over it. Mm-hmm. And so, especially at that kind of pace, a lot went by that I wouldn't have wanted that way or wanted to change. And I'd get really frustrated. And Mark, he pulled me aside once. He's like, Derek, people aren't watching. He said, Derek, there's not a lot of people on the internet who want to watch a video review of Barbie Game Girl for the Game Boy. He said, people are watching this video because you're the one talking about it. Mm-hmm. They want to hear you talk about whatever X is. In my case, X was really bad video games and some really good video games, I did not realize that at the time, that he was so right, that it's a cult of personalities, not a positive sounding word, but people watched Mark's show for Mark.
Sure.
And they loved him and supported him. And to have a fraction of that, I don't think people know how much that's meant to me over the years, frankly.
Well, hopefully now they do. Or at least the folks that listen to this show.
Although I will say, can I say one thing?
Absolutely.
You would think that at some point of being noticed in public and all the shit, right? You would think at some point it would have been a really hot, 22-year-old girl. But I would just like to say, you are all very ugly, very male human beings, is all I'm going to say. And it just at some point, it would have been nice, is all I'm going to say. That's the thing I'm most pissed about in retrospect.
Hey, Emma Watson is still available, man. She's still right there.
Listen, sidetrack, but true story. I am the only man alive. This is true. I stood up Emma Watson.
Wait, what? Okay, no, okay. I need to hear this now.
She was in Pittsburgh, where I live, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, shooting a movie. I happen to know the set medic, who happened to know Emma Watson. So he's talking to her one day about me, and she's laughing at all the dumb shit. He told her he's even got an internet show. He pretends to talk to you, but it's just a cardboard cutout of you. And rather than call the police, she found that. And so she was like, oh, well, bring him by the set. I would love to meet him. I didn't go. It was all set up.
Oh,
he's like,
man.
He's like, dude, you're in. She finishes filming at 6 tomorrow. Come by, and she'd love to talk to you. And I didn't go.
What happened?
I didn't go because I'm a man of outcomes, right?
Okay.
What possible, let's analyze what the outcomes could have been. Outcome A. She goes, oh, hello, Derek. I've heard a lot about you. And I just fall over dead.
Okay, yeah.
Not a great outcome. Okay. 2, oh, hello, Derek. I've heard a lot. And then she falls to the ground because I've tackled her.
Okay.
Also not a great outcome. So I just went through this list, and I thought the most probable outcome was me just looking like an idiot and being like, and maybe crying. And I thought, I can't do it. I can't go. And so I didn't go. But in the back of my mind, I like to think that somewhere in the back of her mind, she's thinking, there's that one guy in my whole life. No one has ever stood up Emma Watson, okay? No one's done it. I'm confident in that, except me. You guys are looking at the king, idiot, all right? It's like, I am Costanza, Lord of the Fools. If you're gonna be good, if you're gonna be an idiot, be the best.
You're
And I'd like to.
You were just playing hard to get, man. You wanted her to come to you.
He's playing the long game.
Yes.
That's what it is.
So as opposed to like meeting her and being nice and charming and thankful for her time, I started a Twitter campaign. #reasons Emma Watson should date Derek. And I did this during the Undertow years when we had a sizable following. And I didn't think it would really catch on. There were hundreds of tweets. #reasons Emma Watson should date Derek. He would let you go first in Duck Hunt. #Emma Watson, like just a bunch of crazy shit that she was tagged in. And so she knows what's going on, I think.
Oh, that is incredible.
I just derailed the show, I'd like to just say. And I'm very glad that I did that. I don't apologize for doing that because we landed on Emma Watson playing Duck Hunt with me, which is, I think, a great visual and a great thing to talk about.
Definitely.
By the way, Ashton, I haven't forgotten, and I'll ask you because your experience there is more subdued. You weren't really the face of CGR at its apex.
And I'd also like to add, Ashton's also a rational human being with control over his emotional state. So he's got a much more he's got a much more valid opinion.
Is it control if they're just non-existent?
This goes back more to the celebrity because I remember
Right.
we were talking about. I don't know why we were talking about CGR, but we brought it up in our Discord shortly after Ashton became one of our patrons, and he's like, "Yeah, I was part of CGR Undertow," and I was like, "Get the fuck out of here, man!" I marked out a little bit.
Oh, that's so great.
It's like, wow, like no fucking way, like that's wild. But to that point, did you get any of the celebrity or just any of the residual, just props from working there in the brief time that you did?
Well, I think you did this to Shane in an episode a few weeks ago, but that was my one story.
No, that was the last episode. He stole my entire Phantasy Star story with like 5 words. Son of a bitch.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Hey,
I mean,
and to be fair, Ashton was there like a lot less than I was, and I was on camera a lot more. So
right.
And I also, you're gonna remember a guy with long curly red hair who sounds like a goddamn Wolverine got trapped in a garbage disposal. You're gonna remember that guy.
Yeah, I was there maybe a year or so. And yeah, never on camera, a lot of just mostly behind the scenes stuff. And that was probably the case for almost everybody, with the exception of Derek, maybe TJ, a couple of the earlier guys that I never met. But yeah, no, I think that is kind of definitely one of the things that's cool. One of the few things cool about YouTube. It's just kind of having those kind of like, what could you compare it to a few decades ago, like a local radio show host or something, or a newscaster or something like that.
Right. I also like when Derek said that you guys only had like 170,000 subscribers, but this was back in the Wild West days of YouTube, and that was nothing to sneeze at. Like 170,000 subscribers was a lot back in like 2012, 2013.
Yep, it was a whole different world back then. We had a really big audience for that time period. Yeah. I mean, enough so I don't know if you guys like wrestling. I was at someone mentioned marking out.
That's me.
Yeah. Okay. Literally any time I went to a Ring of Honor show, there were always gamer nerds in the crowd who came up to me. And I mean, I remember an intermission of a Ring of Honor show. I'm in the front row. Dude comes up with his friends and they're asking for pictures with me. Everyone around us thinks I'm like a wrestler or something. And I'm like, I'm just a fucking lunatic who yells about Emma Watson in public and somehow doesn't get arrested for that. Like that's all I've done here. So please don't. I mean, look at me. I'm not a wrestler. But it was just wild. Like,
I mean, come on, Marco Stunt's a wrestler.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. But what was even cooler is like the times when people were just real chill about it. Like they didn't freak out. I'd be in the grocery store and one time someone was like, Derek, what's up? As like I walked past, they're just like pushing their buggy, and I would just like point, and like it made you feel, especially like I don't got a ton of friends in my personal life, so it just felt like it was nice to be wanted around. That was just really cool.
So one of the things,
of course,
a theme I've heard, and going more back to the production line and how you guys developed, like the YouTube algorithm's always changing, and how you work for more business oriented people. Was there ever a discussion? Because when you guys were at your apex, you also started seeing the rise of gaming channels, like of course the Angry Video Game Nerd, who came up along the side of you, the Completionist, who got a lot of subscribers during your apex. Same with Game Theory, and a lot of other gaming channels. Was there ever a discussion of moving it to more maybe of a less intensive setup or a weekly show, something that Ashton kind of suggested, like more of a writing committee and coming up with more broader, bigger episodes on a less that would come out on a less or a regular schedule, but just less episodes overall? Was there any discussion about any of that?
I mean, to illustrate just the mentality they had in the world they came from, when things started getting really tight, one of their grand ideas was, well, obviously we need product to sell, which is, as an old school business person, yeah, that made sense, 30 years ago or whatever. Like, but like, making more t-shirts or making more things that people can buy wasn't going to save us. We needed, I remember one of the things I suggested, and here, mark it down. Here's one of the few times I'll be critical. One of the things I suggested was, well, why don't we have a system where like people pay a monthly fee? This was like even before Patreon, I think. I was like, you kick in a couple, like I was basing it on the idea of like premium podcast free, but for our members who pay $3 a month, you get a little extra shit, I said, why don't we make the show free like always, but we have a paid component, like a membership thing. And I told them, as much as people love the show, there would definitely be people who would pay to like get shout outs on the show and to maybe be guests on the show. Like we could make more money that way without really altering our workflow, because we would just put some of it behind a paywall. And I'll never forget the idea. I mentioned that idea to like the higher ups, and I'll never forget what they said to me. They were like, yeah, I just don't see people paying for content like that.
Nobody would ever do that, right, Ashton?
Morons. Waste of money.
But okay. So as long as we have you on the line here, Ashton, what would your opinion be of that? Because like you said, you'd be like editing 3+ videos per day. Mm-hmm. Was there ever that kind of mindset that, hey, if we can limit the amount of episodes we make, and we might be able to emulate what these other channels are doing?
Right. Yeah. I think I had those ideas kind of like percolating in the back of my mind, but I'm like so introverted, and like I need to like sit on something for so long, like that, and that's the opposite of YouTube. Like they don't want you sitting on things; they want you to, go live.
Yeah,
say it now. And I had ideas for that. I remember I had an idea. The closest thing I came to pitching was I wanted to do I had an idea for a like retro gaming Christmas parody song, and we would have the like different reviewers sing different parts of it, and the background would be like all the winter snow levels from video games or something like that. So I had those ideas all the time, but I just got, was too nervous and scared, and I was like, that's not my place, so that was more so on me. But yeah, that was kind of like what that's what I envisioned, because I like started watching YouTube before, Google bought it, and it turned into what it is now. And I'd watch like shows that were so small, like they thanked every subscriber, and they would do things, and everything was kind of.
We also have no idea what that's like.
Yeah.
No, we thank every patron. I think we have a little bit more than that. Come on now, Shane.
Okay, fine. All right, fine. No, but like I mean, I know I said this before, but it still blows my fucking mind that you guys were putting out that much content at that breakneck pace. Like, I mean, even big channels today, like I always go back to like Game Grumps, right? Because they're huge, and like their release schedule is what I think it's. I want to say I think they do like I think it's 2 videos a day, but also they're a Let's Play channel, so it's like way less overhead and like there's not really any scripting or anything like that. And so for you guys to be pumping out the amount of content you did, I guess it would have had to have been like an assembly line set up at some point, because there's just no way that you could keep up with that pace.
Yeah, and I mean we had people there pretty much like all hours. If you had the code for the gate or whatever, you could almost get in whenever. So I can't remember exactly, but there must have been some sort of schedule thing, because we only had like 2, maybe 3 editing stations and 2 or 3 recording stations or whatever. And this was before people like owned their own recording, game streaming kind of thing. They couldn't just come. Actually, one girl came in with a hard drive, I think, but it was like super wrong. Like it was like 420 or like the 240 resolution. It was like super tiny, and I'm like, yeah, I can't edit this. And she also recorded 15 minutes of it.
Okay.
I don't want to replay the same 30-second clip, but that's a whole other thing.
The days before Twitch.
Yeah. Like I said, I mentioned in passing, like there was a lot of innovation and things ahead of its time. But as kind of Derek mentioned, like YouTube didn't always, if you weren't following their rules at the time, you were punished basically.
I do have one final question, because we have been going for an hour and 30 minutes. I know Shane likes to keep his episodes tight. But in terms of, and this is of course both of you.
It's just a general life philosophy, really. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, keep everything tight. But tight is better. But so you were on these successful YouTube channels, and you had a decent following. You had this celebrity, at least, especially for you, Derek. Why didn't you pursue a YouTube career after leaving CGR Undertow? Why didn't you try to pursue your own thing and build on the success that you had found where you found it?
Did you? I guess
I get that question. I mean, still literally every day on Twitter and things, and it's gotten to the point where I'm not even sure what the answer is. I've come up with so many ideas of things I could do and things I'd like to do. But I'm really afraid. I mentioned a couple of times, I think, how much of a perfectionist I am. Mm-hmm. Classic Game Room was my full-time job. Not only that, it was my life. I was there all week. I worked so hard. I worked so fucking hard at that job. It was, aside from my wife, it was the number one thing in my life. Like, I cared so much about it. If I can't do something at that level, like if I can't do something as good or better, I don't want to do anything. I got into trouble a lot in college where, like, if I was working on a project and I wasn't happy, if you want to get a look into my psychopathy, there were several times I took zeros on projects just because it wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be. And so I'd rather take the 0 than turn in something half-assed. I'm an insane person. So I would not want to do anything that couldn't be at the same standard of the thing that I did when it was my full-time job. And I'm afraid that, just given the time restraints and also the fact that, God, fuck it, we had a whole studio of equipment. I have my phone now. And also, some behind the scenes for the listeners, these guys are asking me like, oh, do you have Discord or Audacity? Dude, I don't know. I don't even fucking know what any of that shit is. So like this is why Ashton and Brandon were so important, because I'm not the technical guy. I just show up and act like a dick. So like for me to be able to do all that on my own is daunting. I don't know how to capture footage. Like, I've got a million excuses, but I think the main thing is I just miss Undertow so much that I'm afraid to do something that doesn't get liked as much. Like, I would hate to do something and find out that people don't actually give a shit,
Yeah, you kind of set like a really high bar. Yeah.
An impossibly high bar that I can't even, a bar that I set so high for everything in my life that I can't even define it. A bar that's set so high that Undertow isn't even that bar. If Undertow came along right now, I probably wouldn't think it reached the level of Undertow in my mind. Like that's the way my mind works. I'm demented. So I like I said, I have some really cool ideas, but I just don't. There's a lot of emotional stuff to get out of the way before I actually try any of it.
Oh, sure. Well, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but it sounds like, given what you've sort of told us about, the fans even still getting in touch with you like to this day and things like that, I have a sense that, should you ever decide to pursue something like that, one of the ideas that you might have, bouncing around in the noggin, I think you'd probably have a lot more support than I think you might.
Maybe, because I feel like it would tank and nobody would care, but I feel that way about me in general. I wake up and think, well, today I'm going to tank and no one's going to care. So of course I think that. But one of the things I'm also afraid of is this would be if I do something on my own. I've never done something on my own. I've never been let off the chains. So at Undertow, I got to do pretty much what I wanted, but I still had to run ideas by people. And there were a lot of ideas where it's like, and the people who know my shit, if you've seen the video where I kill a sloth, like that was Derek at like a 7 on the weirdness. I'm kind of afraid of like what would happen if I didn't have to get ideas approved. Like would I end up getting 302'd and put in jail or something? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But that's
somebody's going to tell you to not do the Psychology of Zelda video.
Yeah, like what am I going to do if I don't have an angel sitting on my shoulder going, Derek, that's a really bad idea. So I don't know.
Yeah, especially in this day of YouTube, just pretty much saying anything you say is bad, and we're not going to help you. And
honestly, and I'm not like I don't want to come across as the type of people who say this because I'm not. But the whole PC thing too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not a PC guy. I'm not a MAGA guy, but I think I think it's okay for things to be funny. So, and that's not the world we live in right now. So like, I'm afraid a lot of the Undertow stuff, even now, and the jokes I made, I made a joke about a Britney Spears game where I said, the best thing about this game is that you can play it with one hand. And I feel like if I said that now, I would get a bunch of comments like, how dare you disrespect women? How dare you suggest that Britney Spears, like, dude, it's just a comment. It's just a joke about jerking off.
Leave Britney alone.
Like, the world's a very different place than 2015. I think we all know that.
Correct. And honestly, and I'm at least cognizant of the fact that I don't really, and again, I'm one of the good guys. I'm not a, Nazi.
Yeah, we got you.
But I do think it's gone way too far. On the other side.
Also, how fucked up is it that we have to qualify things that we're talking about by saying, like, just be clear, I am not a Nazi. I just want to point that out.
Thank you. Like yesterday, I got into a big thing on Twitter because they just announced the Ren and Stimpy shows being revived, and I had the audacity to say, well, if the guy who created it isn't involved, I don't think they should do it. I don't support it. And obviously, John Kricfalusi's done some shit. He's had some demons. But does that mean he's not allowed to do his job ever again?
Right.
I like what Billy West said about it is like the twin brother of Genius's madness or something similar to that.
Like, when are we going to stop being surprised that fucked up art is being made by fucked up people? If people are boring and think in a box, they're not going to do anything that's interesting. They're just not. And I wish people stopped getting offended by the fact that other people think differently than they do. Obviously, what he did was terrible. I'm not defending a child rapist. The fact that I have to qualify that, like you said, shows how fucked up it is that we have a system of law, we have a system of all this stuff, and yet still that's not enough. He's not allowed to do anything ever again, ever. Even though on the other side of him is the most talented animator of his generation. He's not allowed to do that anymore because he fucked up. I just think
it's this whole cancel culture thing.
Yeah. I don't think
the same thing with like Earthworm Jim too.
Right. I mean, you couldn't have Ren and Stimpy now anyway. Back then, parents were writing in and saying this is inappropriate. If they did it now, the fucking kids would be writing in saying, I'm offended. This is inappropriate. Why is Ren hitting Stimpy? That's abusing your friend. I have a friend who was abused once, and this is triggering me. Like, okay, it's funny if a psychotic dog hits a cat. That's all you need to know about it. Like
The dog's psychotic.
The dog's fucking crazy. Crazy dog. He's insane.
Well, listen, man. I mean, you're kind of preaching to the choir here, anyway, because I know Chris and I with this show have run up against that exact situation on a number of occasions. Because, and I will say for the record, and I don't know if it's just because we're getting old or whatever the hell, but like our humor has toned down a little bit over the years that we've been doing this show, but like we still have our moments, and yeah, it feels like it's getting harder and harder to have.
You said harder.
Okay, so case in point, but
Oh, that's a dick joke. Oh my God, he just made a dick joke.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, our whole dick dragon thing, man.
Dick jokes are not funny. I have a dick. I know what that's like. I have friends who have dicks.
Do you know people who have experienced dicklessness?
I have a friend who got kicked in the dick.
Some people's dicks can't get hard. Why are you making jokes about hard dicks?
My dad has a erectile function. I don't think that's funny. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Get some Viagra. I don't know what to tell you. But some things are funny. Dicks are funny. Have you ever seen a dick? Look at it.
Every day, and I'm sad.
Like, that's the thing that creates life. Are you kidding me? Look at it. It looks like it looks like a snake that, like, well, in my case, an earthworm. It looks like a small creature that shouldn't be, and yet it is. And yet it is responsible for this entire species. No wonder we are the way we are. Look at the dick.
It is half responsible, first of all. I'm offended.
Women in my experience aren't doing nearly as much as see, now that was a joke, everyone. That was a joke about how women just lay there. And and you know what? They don't actually do that, but it's a joke and it's funny, and that's why it's okay, because you're not being serious.
And that's why I turned on Emma Watson.
Ugh. If anyone just lays there, it's me, because I'm terrified of naked girls. Look at them. They're perfect.
To be fair, that's why I think the Brits have it right when they call them bellends.
Bellends. It does look like
that's a good one.
Like a little baby holding a little fist. It's really gross at the point. If you listen, for your listeners, if you haven't looked at your dicks lately, give it a look and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. It's not a pretty sight.
And if you don't have a dick, you can probably find a picture of one or find one in real life.
But
quite easily.
Yeah, well, I'd say just look in your DMs, for Christ's sake. Like,
let's be honest. I haven't seen your demos. I haven't seen the splits. I'm gonna guess most of them have dicks.
I would say probably 99.
You're absolutely right.
Because I've seen the Undertow demos, and they're the most disappointing thing I've ever seen in my life.
My Instagram tells me I'm loved. So how about you, Ashton? Why didn't you, when you left CGR?
Holy shit. That's where we landed on?
That's where that started.
That is where we started with that, yes.
Shit, we landed on baby dick. Oh my God. Do you see?
From Ren and Stimpy.
Sorry, Ashton.
I concur. Yeah.
God, now all I can think of is that scene where Ren's like running that lumber saw up and down. Like his ass crack. Oh God!
I'm the teacher. You're the catcher.
I'm sorry. Anyway, Ashton, please go on.
Oh, do Space Madness, Ashton. Space Madness.
Glazed ham.
Black paper. Boiled football leather.
Why didn't I keep making YouTube videos?
I'm gonna blame me for that. That's probably on me.
Let's see here. Again, my memory's fuzzy because I'm old now.
Ashton was also on drugs at the time.
Yeah, I was say, were you just blitzed the entire time you were working there?
Yeah, man, it's a great video.
Hey, man,
let's do another cooking game.
Yeah. You're only doing 10? Man, I think we should be doing 30. Let's go.
Probably the closest thing would be doing podcasts. I started doing that 3-4 years ago. I've kind of fallen off that wagon, but would like to get back into it. This is in no way a dig, but it is a lot easier than YouTube videos. It's still a lot of work and time.
Well, it's on the spot, whereas a lot of the YouTube stuff's that's all scripted, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we did not anticipate landing where we landed.
I'm so glad that we did, though. I gotta be honest with you, but no, like I'm not gonna take.
You guys are never gonna have me on ever again, are you? And I'm fine. I mean, that's fine. I get it. Like I wouldn't have me on either, but
we'd love. I would personally love to have you back on again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, everyone's got their weird quirks, I guess, but
he's like, I wouldn't recommend it, but
I would not
stop you.
Derek, our logo is a eggplant dragon. We would love to have you back on.
First off, what is a penis? I don't know what you're talking about.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. I've seen other people have them. Oh, anyway, Ashton's podcasts. Yeah, go ahead, Ashton.
Yeah, but no. For the record, Ashton, I will tell you that you are right. Like, video production is definitely more difficult for sure.
Ashton also has a podcast about dicks. Fun.
That's on my Patreon account.
Yes,
the $10 level. No,
it's at Ash Tons of Dicks.
Is that the
that might be the first time I've heard that one. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I had considered it. Again, just like people who do this kind of thing, you always have ideas and things percolating that you rarely act upon. But yeah, I mean, it is easier, kind of like we said, I think at one point, like 10 years ago, people didn't have, phones with awesome cameras and like built-in recording software on their laptops. So yeah, I mean, it has always crossed my mind. I just kind of always felt like when most of my podcasts were more like interview style, where I was asking people about stuff and learning things, because I kind of felt like I don't think anyone cares what I have to say, but I like to talk to other people, so maybe other people will listen to that, So I always kind of felt like if I was going to create stuff, it was going to be more that style. Like I want to pick a topic I'm interested in, have a conversation with somebody about it, rather than just be like, hey world, this is what I think about Mario Kart. By the way, I'm the 8th millionth person to tell you about Mario Kart. And more power to people who do that. I just always kind of felt like I don't.
I was to say now I'm offended, Ashton. Now I'm offended.
and it's like in a weird way, maybe I don't know what the word is, vain or whatever, to think like, well, I don't want to be just one more voice in the crowd, like it fucking matters, So yeah, I guess that's why I never really, if I did something again, I'd want it to be more like hey, I want to get together people that I respect and think are smart and creative and work together on something that's really cool and something that I think is really good, whether anybody watches it or not. And that's really hard to do with like anyone other than yourself sometimes. Just coordinating schedules and shit. But
Ashton, what if we start a show that's just called Derek Gets Canceled, and we deliberately do things to try and and then we have a cancel count at the bottom of the screen.
See, this is Derek's brilliance. Is like he's joking, but that is brilliant.
No, but here's the thing.
I would watch it.
I actually.
The thing is, I'm not joking. I feel like, well, I guess that is my mind. I'm joking, but then I'm not joking at the same time. Like, I would love to do a show where we just piss people off deliberately, and then just watch their heads explode. That would be really fun.
The only unfortunate part about that is you probably get the audience you don't want, and that would be the only concern. But other than that, I'd watch it.
I'd end up with a bunch of MAGA people who think I'm on their team. That could actually be even more fun though, because then I could play along. I could be like, yeah, who needs to be qualified to do anything, right?
I think Sacha Baron Cohen beat you to that one. But.
He kind of did. He stole my shtick.
Yeah, but he's not doing it anymore. So there's room.
And I think this is maybe going to lead into another tangent, but. You mentioned audience, and that is kind of something I was thinking about. Like, that's the best and worst things of the internet is like it can reach anyone, but unfortunately, it reaches everyone. Like, like you could tell those jokes all day long if you're telling it to, like us.
Yep.
But there's almost no way to like only deliver it to the people that you think are like, oh, these people get it. They know I'm joking. I don't got to qualify everything. They think it's funny. We all have a good time. And
all of a sudden we act like everyone's got everyone's opinion is worth being heard. I got news for you. Half of you bozos, nobody gives a shit anyway, so just shut up.
Way more than half.
There's still people out there that still like to have fun, though. I would like to think.
And as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that too. Like, you're more successful when you keep your audience and circle of interaction to people you know well and you understand better. Like, understanding people is like a lost art. Like, and that's the problem with the internet and why people don't understand. Like, they don't understand what's going on, and they don't know that they should understand what's going on.
Yep. Nuance is dead.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm good at any of this. I'm just saying I'm realizing this is probably the better way to live.
I mean, we're also from a different era. We grew up in the time of like The Daily Show with Jon Stewart and South Park, and that was predominant comedy, at least for myself. And if you grow up with that, you're going to have a much different sense of humor than if you grew up in, after that, as we are obviously seeing now. If you're a college student nowadays, your sense of humor and what you've been raised on to believe what is funny or not is way different than what we believe is funny.
You actually don't have one. You don't have a
right.
There's that.
There is no humor anymore.
Comedy is for fascists, apparently.
I think at this point, given that I think we've had a pretty extensive and good conversation going, but probably want to try to start wrapping
How else
things
can I
up.
derail your show?
Hey, Derek, if we get started on this, we could have an entire conversation, but we're trying to keep it to video games. I'm a poli-sci major, so
Let me
I
tell you a great story about Classic Game Room. It all started.
A twinkle.
It all started at an Obama rally.
It all started at an Obama rally. And people are saying it started in an Obama rally, okay? Classic Game Room or like Classic Gate Room, okay? Tremendous that your people are saying. Read the manual, okay? Read the manual.
The R zone. Have you ever wondered why they spent so much time on the R zone? Think about it, okay? It's a tremendous, very, very powerful. It's red like China, and they're spreading viruses with the R zone.
There are caravans coming from the R zone, full of rapists. They're gonna come rape your daughters, okay? People are just saying that. I don't know that for a fact. People are saying that the R zone.
I have been told. People say
there are Mexicans in the R zone, okay?
The best people.
The best Mexicans. There are no good Mexicans in the R zone.
All right, I'm gonna try to bring this back around again. That's good, but so at any rate, so Chris, do you have anything else that you wanted to touch on real quick before we kind of wrap things up?
So I just got to say thank you so much, Ashton and Derek, for being here on our show today. This interview is really special to me. Just because I watched Classic Game Room. I think I found it back in 2011, 2012. I'm not sure. Right around the time I really started getting into retro video games. This is what a lot of people did back then. And the hours of entertainment every single day, going and watching a new video every single day, watching new content. It gave a lot of entertainment to me, and it really got me involved with the retro gaming community, and I enjoyed it. And it's where I gained a lot of my gaming knowledge, and it's one of the major reasons I'm so interested in doing this hobby today, to include doing this podcast. Even coming down to like when you guys went to the website, you would only go through Daily Motion. Like, I was so excited to make new pages for all these different games and contribute as much as I could. And I always get excited sometimes when Derek would read my questions on his update videos. And
oh my God, did I read some of yours?
Yes.
Nice.
But I was.
Did I answer any of your questions by talking through my ass?
Yes. The The one that sticks out the most to me is why beat 'em ups went away.
Did I answer that through my ass, or did I actually give an answer to that?
No, you actually gave an answer to that. That wasn't through your ass. You're like, yeah, that's a good point. Why do beat 'em ups suck now, and why are they not as good as they used to be in the 16-bit generation? And I don't remember specifically what you said.
So what I did, I just reiterated your question and said that's a good question.
Great question.
Essentially, no, you gave a real answer. I can't remember the specifics. It's been a while, man.
That's a Derek move to just say, yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. but it meant a lot.
Send in more questions like this.
It meant a lot, and even to this day, like as you said, people are still discovering it. I will routinely walk into my kid watching Classic Game Room or CGR Undertow. He's 11, and he's super into retro games and video games, and just seeing that's continuing on to a new generation of gamers, and how much you've inspired just not me, but now my children. Like what you guys did is going to have a lasting impact and a major legacy. And I'm very, very honored that you guys came on the show today. And from the bottom of my heart, in all seriousness, thank you guys for sharing your experiences. Thank you guys for saying the things that you said. And I think that so many people will get so much out of this, because I know I did. And this was just amazing and fulfilling on my part. So thank you again. Thank you very much.
Well, unlike Ashton, I'm not a prick, so I don't like to use words like hero. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, I fuck around a lot and joke around, but in all seriousness, I thank you guys for having me on. It's always an honor for me when people who are doing shit now, unlike me, I just sit on my ass all day. So it's an honor for me when people who are actually doing stuff now deem me worthy enough to have on. So that it does mean a lot. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if my nonsense disrupted your show. Sometimes you open that closet and you don't know how many cats are going to jump out.
Dude, it's fine. This whole show is fucking nonsense.
It's not. Yeah. But thank you all so much. And for everyone who did watch CGR Undertow, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. And people who know me will tell you this, that I really do mean. I appreciate literally every click you ever gave us, literally every video, every minute you ever watched. Thank you so much, because it allowed me to live my dream job. And I cannot thank you enough for that. And if you haven't watched CGR Undertow and I haven't turned you off, go to youtube.com/CGR Undertow. The channel's still up. We made, right before I left, we kind of organized it as much as they would let me. So we did some playlists, and like there's a best of CGR Undertow playlist, so you can get like a sample for the nonsense we did. And to be fair, as much as the nonsense, I'm actually pretty brilliant guy. So when I felt inspired, we did do some really serious, really smart video game commentary too. It was just much more fun to make dick jokes. So we did both.
That's fair. Yeah.
And I hope whether your bag is dick jokes or seriousness, that you check us out, because we've got something there for you. And like you said, it's really all about loving video games and loving that community. Our slogan there was, if video games are fun, if video games are supposed to be fun, talking about them should be fun too. Like, this should be fun. We shouldn't be up our own asses and arguing about multiplayer or region free. Like, who cares? This should be fun. And that's what Classic Game Room was all about.
Yeah. And again, believe me or not, maybe I'm biased, but everything that Derek is saying, like everything Derek said is totally legit. And like, he's not just saying that. Like, you could tell working with Derek, like he enjoyed it and he put his heart into it. And he was there to make people laugh and make cool videos. So it's not just him saying it. I'll vouch for him as much as you can believe. Two guys that work together.
Ashton, do you remember that time we just held each other and cried and made love?
Yeah, I think of it every night.
That was a good day at the old office.
I stole that couch.
It still smells of your musk.
I smell Ashton's musk.
Well, that seems appropriate to end on that note for this show. So I guess with all of that being said, Chris has already said his piece, but for what it's worth, I will say I absolutely adored having both of you on the show, and I'm so glad that you accepted our invitation to come on this little thing and talk to us about CGR. So this was awesome.
Of course. Did you send the PayPal? Did we? Oh wait, never mind.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about that after. We'll talk about it.
Okay, we'll talk after.
Your people talk to my people.
It's Venmo, okay.
Venmo's the thing.
Yeah, that's what the kids are doing.
PayPal's too offensive.
Yeah, that's
Oh, sorry.
It's getting canceled soon.
People are saying PayPal is no good.
So with all of that being said, until next time.
Play with your classically oriented joysticks.
Ashton has a classically oriented joystick.
You know that firsthand.
As classic as they come.
Shane here with a quick message. You know, the one rule Chris and I have always gone by regarding advertisements is this. It has to be something we use and can personally vouch for. If you know me, you know I love coffee. And Bones Coffee Company has been my go-to for home brewing for quite some time now. Their small batch beans come in an impressive variety of flavors like Mint Invaders from Chocolate Space, or Electric Unicorn, which I swear tastes exactly like Fruity Pebbles. And the best part? No added sugar or calories involved, just natural flavors infused right into the beans themselves. Build your own sample pack of 5 4-ounce bags to find out which flavors speak to you, or jump in head first with full 12-ounce bags. They've even got K-Cups. Step up your homebrew game with Bones Coffee by visiting bit.ly/RHPBones. That's bit.ly/RHPBONES.